And let's go inside the strategy room, shall we? Bill Clinton weighing in today on the current economic crisis in his first appearance on ABC's talk show, The View. Today, Bill Clinton not only talked about the government's rescue package, but he also defended himself when it came to mortgage giants Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac.
You could argue that we should have reined in Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, even though there were no problems then. But when we tried to do that, I sent a guy to Capitol Hill. We were laughing. We had both the Democrats and Republicans all over us because they had so much political money to give out. That was a mess. It's an embarrassment to America, and I'm glad we got it fixed.
All right, there you have it. With me now on the right, we have former campaign manager for Bob Dole in Texas, Anthony Hallam, and on the left, former senior campaign aide to Montana's Governor Brian Schweitzer. David Sirota, welcome to both of you. Anthony, what did you think of Bill Clinton's defense?
Well, I thought it was obviously a president trying to make sure that his legacy and the economics is not tarnished. But what disturbed me about it is, one, that it occurred, and two, it was almost said with a laugh or a snicker. I mean, we had the president's leadership team out there with Congress cutting this deal that freed banks from regulations, and we had heydays, and now the American taxpayer is quite literally paying for it. I mean, it's really un-American, fundamentally shocking that we're taking equity stakes. We have a Democratic House and a Democratic Senate want to take equity positions in public companies, but clearly President Clinton is worried about his legacy, and rightly so on this one.
Hey, David, you know, I think the American people listen to both sides. Everyone's pointing fingers at the other side and saying it was their fault. No, it was their fault. You know, I mean, isn't there a little bit of blame to go all around? There must be, in that nobody seemed to be doing the regulatory job that they were supposed to be doing here with, I don't know, 13 agencies that have some hand in this.
Yeah. I totally agree. I think President Clinton was actually right in that both Democrats and Republicans were pushing for the kind of deregulation that led to this crisis. The only thing that Bill Clinton left out was that Bill Clinton's administration played a role. His Treasury Secretary, Bob Rubin, was one of the leading champions of deregulation. One thing I want to add, though, is that the thrust for deregulation has always been a Republican push. I mean, it was Republican Senator Phil Gramm who pushed for deregulation. I'm not saying the Democrats have no fault here.
But here's the thing, David. You know, when you look at it, it's like deregulation. Everyone's screaming about deregulation. Deregulation in and of itself is not a bad thing. But what happens is when you have the regulatory commissions whose job it is to oversee all of this, and they don't do their job, you know, what I would love to hear is somebody on either side saying, you know what, maybe we only need 2 or 3 of these groups. All these people getting paid in Washington to do what?
But see, I totally disagree with you. I mean, what I would say is that you're right. Regulation and deregulation, these are value-neutral things. But the idea that this was a failure of oversight, that there were regulators who weren't doing their job, I mean, there was some of that. But the real problem here was that there weren't the laws on the books to enforce. I mean, we had the repeal of the Depression-era laws pushed by Republicans, signed by President Clinton, that repealed the laws that would have prevented or at least softened this crisis.
All right, you know what, though? I mean, you know...
But wait a second.
Go ahead.
Isn't the real problem here that we're looking backward instead of looking forward? And we have a situation here and today where Americans are in really drastic situations, and we have a lack of leadership. And particularly Senator Obama, if he wants to lead this country, why isn't he coming out with substantive, forward-looking issues? And this is
John McCain is the guy who says, I'm fundamentally a deregulator. John McCain is the guy who says, I'm fundamentally a deregulator. I don't like regulation. And now he's trying to claim that he's for regulation.
Here's the problem with that, David. Those are broad terms that really mean nothing. I mean, you can trace this all the way down to the banks that should not have given loans to people who didn't have the money to pay them.
Let's look at his voting record. John McCain has voted for every single bill to dereregulate the financial industry in the last 20 years. His major formative economic experience was being a member of the Keating Seven, a member of the Keating Five.
Wait a minute, David, since you brought that up, Bill Burton brought it up earlier, and it should just be mentioned on this show because it's now been brought up twice, that he was totally cleared by the Senate Ethics Committee in that case.
He was rebuked by the Senate Ethics Committee.
No, he was
officially rebuked by the Senate Ethics Committee.
So let's be clear on that.
He was rebuked by the Senate Ethics Committee because he tried to intimidate regulators and push them off Charles Keating.
Factually take
$100,000 of money to push regulators off.
And then clear.
He was officially rebuked for irresponsible behavior.
And then clear. That's the way the system works, okay?
I'm being honest. He was officially rebuked by the Senate Ethics Committee for irresponsible behavior in backing off regulators from Charles Keating's bank, who he took $100,000 from.
We got to go. But, I mean, you know, in the end, what matters is whether or not you're clear. The same thing was true for Bill Clinton and many others out there who have been raised on different issues, and they were then cleared. Then we accept the fact that they're cleared. So, Anthony Hallam, David Sirota, we're having the same argument that's being had at dinner tables and restaurants all across this country tonight. Thank you very much for being with us, you guys.